The subject of today's video was never supposed to be an NFL star, let alone a college football superstar. He was one of the forgotten players in this year's draft class, and after a spectacular Week 1 performance, he could be one of the better rookies for the 2021 NFL season. In his debut, he had over 100 yards and a touchdown, and helped the San Francisco 49ers to a Week 1 win. He broke every high school record known to man, and while he was in college, he had over 3,000 yards and 46 combined touchdowns. So yeah, in today's video, we're going to tell his story, how he went from a 2-star recruit to a future NFL star, and everything you need to know about him. But right before we get into it, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed for this season, and you're not going to want to miss out on all the great content I have coming your way. So be sure to do that, hit that like button, let me know your thoughts, and turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload. Now let's get started and tell his story. So at this point, you're probably wondering who the subject of today's video is, and it is former Louisiana and current San Francisco 49ers running back Elijah Mitchell. But in order to understand why he has such a bright future, we need to go all the way back in time and go down south and tell his story. So going back in time, Elijah grew up in the state of Louisiana and always loved football from a young age. He was from a small town called Erath, and they always supported him. He was a big deal in the town, and when he eventually got to high school football, he blossomed into a star. He said, quote, "As a freshman, I came in with the mindset this is what I'm going to do. I just love to play football, and I've been working hard since my freshman year and getting better every single year." This was definitely true, as he had 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons, and one year he even went for over 1,900 yards and 28 touchdowns. He said the small town community played a major role in why he was so successful. Mitchell said, quote, "The big reason for why I've done so well are the crowds and the people that are behind me in a small community. It's just awesome." Erath is a very rural area, and Elijah was the kind of guy who would always show up in jeans and boots, and when he was not at the farm, he was at the football field. He was raised the right way and was a stand-up guy. He was obviously a star in the area, but where was he going to go for college football? Well, he was recruited by some bigger schools, but never enough interest to get an offer. He eventually decided to commit to a local school called Louisiana Lafayette. At the time, the program was struggling tremendously, but because of the amount of respect they showed him, he wanted to be a Raging Cajun. He said, quote, "Since I was a freshman, they've always reached out to me and showed me love. They just make you feel like you're at home, and since it's so close, all of my friends and family can watch me play there." He ended up picking the Cajuns over offers from schools such as Army, Tulane, and Louisiana Monroe. He loved the fast-paced offense, proximity to home, and the vibe of the place, and he committed early on, and this would shock the staff. He said, quote, "The decision was already made when I went there. I've been wanting to commit, and I think I caught them off guard when I told them I was ready. I looked at my recruiter, and I just said I wanted to focus on my senior year." So yeah, maybe he could have gotten some bigger offers had he waited, but that's not what he did, and he focused on his senior year of high school. He became the leading rusher in his high school's history, as he ran for over 4,000 yards and 50 touchdowns in 3 years on only 457 carries. If you do the math, he averaged 9 yards per carry and a touchdown every 9 carries. This was absolutely crazy, and he broke every high school record known to man. Despite that, he was not highly ranked. According to 24/7 Sports, he was a 2-star recruit, the number 419 wide receiver, and the 2,993rd best player in the class of 2017. Elijah was ready to shock the world, and he was going to do it at a program that desperately needed him. So going into the 2017 college football season, the Louisiana Raging Cajuns were under head coach Mark Hudspeth. He had been a solid coach for him, but it would later come out that there would be both academic fraud and payments to players, and he was relieved of his coaching duties after 2017. But we need to go to the beginning of the 2017 season to understand Elijah Mitchell's story there. The coaching staff had no idea what they were going to get out of Mitchell, but he was listed as a wide receiver according to 24/7 Sports, despite being more of a running back. He began to show flash as a freshman, but on one unlucky play, he got his ankle hurt and his season was over. Mitchell said, quote, "That was devastating to me. All I could think of was to keep telling myself that things happen for a reason, and all I could do as a person was to try to turn it into a positive." He had obviously shown flash his freshman year, but he would have to bounce back. In his first year with the Cajuns, he ran for 257 yards and 4 touchdowns, but now he'd have a new head coach. The Cajuns decided to move in a new direction after Hudspeth was fired, and they hired Arizona offensive coordinator Billy Napier. In case you didn't know, he was the offensive coordinator at Clemson and the wide receivers coach at Alabama for a little while, and he is a coach that I absolutely love and think he's the next big thing. He was going to turn that Louisiana program back around and help develop Mitchell into the best player he could be. In 2018, Mitchell would run the ball 145 times for 977 yards and 13 touchdowns. Because of that, he was named a second-team All-Sun Belt selection. His best game of that year came against Texas State, as he went for 191 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he also had 3 scores against New Mexico State and South Alabama. Louisiana did pretty well, as despite an 8-4 record, they still went to the Sun Belt Championship, where they lost to Appalachian State. They ended up making the Cure Bowl, where Mitchell had a touchdown in a 41-24 loss to Tulane. Going into 2019, Mitchell would improve. This time he ran for 1,147 yards and increased his number to 16 touchdowns. He had 143 yards and 3 touchdowns against Ohio, had over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in a big road win against Arkansas State, and helped lead them to a 10-2 record, where they would once again go to the Sun Belt Championship game and lose to number 21 Appalachian State. They would go to the Lending Tree Bowl, where he'd have a touchdown in a win over Miami of Ohio. Because of that, he was once again named a second-team All-Sun Belt selection. He decided to come back for his senior year, and 2020 would have a lot of hype for the Cajuns. Mitchell didn't do a whole lot, but he helped them go on the road and beat number 23 Iowa State. But the following week, he had 164 yards and 2 touchdowns and an overtime win over Georgia State. He had 2 more scores in a close loss to Coastal Carolina, and then he had scored 3 touchdowns in their last 6 games, including a big win on the road against Appalachian State again. Because of that, they would get selected to go to the First Responder Bowl, where they would play against UTSA, and he'd go for 127 yards and 1 touchdown. This would be the final game of his collegiate career, and he finished his senior season with 878 yards and 8 touchdowns, with 16 catches for 153 yards in the receiving game. This was pretty good for 11 games, as in a normal year, this team probably would have played 13. He would finish his Cajun career with 3,259 yards and 41 touchdowns on the ground, with an average of 6.2 yards per carry. He also was a factor in the receiving game, as he caught 49 passes for 597 yards and 5 touchdowns. Because of all that, he was named a first-team All-Sun Belt selection in 2020 and will likely go down as the best running back in Cajuns history. So how is he going to be in terms of the NFL? Well, he tested really well, as he was super quick, ran a great 40 time, was one of the highest graded athletes in the rookie class, and seemingly he had the production to be good. But he would not go that high. He would have to wait till day 3, and you would finally hear his name called, as he was taken with the 194th overall pick in the 6th round by the San Francisco 49ers. He had an uphill battle from the start, as they already had Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, and they had drafted Trey Sermon out of Ohio State just earlier in that draft. They must have seen something in him, or else they would not have drafted him, but he was already going to start as the 4th or 5th back on the team, and he was going to have to work his way up. He was a 2-star recruit back in the day, though, and seemingly he had been doubted for a long time, so he was going to make all the teams that passed on him regret it. So as we went into this year for the Niners, he was going to be listed behind Raheem Mostert, JaMycal Hasty, Jeff Wilson, and Trey Sermon. He was the 5th back on the team, but unfortunately for some of the other players, guys would get hurt. Eventually going into their Week 1 matchup with the Lions, it did seem like he was going to see the field, but he got some help. Trey Sermon got in trouble with the 49ers coaching staff, and Raheem Mostert went down with a season-ending injury early on. Now, it was time for Elijah Mitchell to shine, and he took full advantage of this opportunity. Against the Lions, he carried the ball 19 times for 104 yards and had a touchdown. He had one of the best performances for any running back in Week 1, especially a rookie. Mostert has now been listed out for the year, and with how well he played, I'm certain he will be starting next week. Everyone in fantasy is picking this guy up, and while most people did not know who he was, if you paid attention to college football, especially the Sun Belt, you knew this guy was legit, and I believed he was a sleeper pick. I'm really happy for Mitchell, and he was one of my favorite players back in college. I'm glad I got to tell his story today, and I look forward to him having a great 2021 season and a long NFL career. But what do you guys think? Is Elijah Mitchell's Week 1 performance fool's gold? How good of a running back is he? And what's another player from the NFL or college I should take a look at in my next video? Be sure to let me know, and also don't forget to hit that like button, as it really helps with the algorithm. Turn on post notifications, subscribe if you are new here, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.